Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be making another cape, or in this instance actually a poncho, because over the last few months I've been doing a few videos showing how to make custom capes for vintage Kenner Star Wars figures. So far I've done a new cape and skirt for Darth Vader, I've also done a cape for Boba Fett, I've made a new sort of cloak for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and also one for the Tusken Raider. And another one that everyone keeps asking for is to make a poncho for Luke Skywalker, as you see him on Tatooine in Star Wars A New Hope, and that's what we're going to be working on today. Now I've made ponchos before, because you'll have seen that I've also recreated the poncho for the Endor version of Luke Skywalker and also the Endor version of Leia, but the poncho that Luke wears on Tatooine is completely different, so we're going to have to make a pattern from scratch. And before I even make a pattern, I've got to make a prototype, so let's get on and make a prototype version of a poncho and we'll see what we can do, see what needs making, and then from that I can make a final pattern. So here we have Luke Skywalker. It's a standard 3 3/4 inch size figure, and it shouldn't be too hard to work out something to make this poncho look like it does in the movie. I've had a look at a good few stills and just to sort of try and work out exactly what is going on with Poncho, and it appears to be a fairly square piece of fabric with a slit cut in the top of it. That just goes over Luke's head and then it sort of folds down. Obviously when you're making things for smaller size toys like this, some things don't hang quite the same as they do in real life. So the full-size version of the poncho really is just a big square of fabric, but because of the weight of it, it hangs down quite nicely. I think when we come to make something to go on this figure, we may have to do a few little modifications to the shape to make it look right. We're also going to have to do a little bit of sewing to try and keep it all sort of hanging in the right shape. But the first thing I need to do is just cut a bit of fabric and see what works. So I've got some fabric here. This is fabric that I use for making most of the capes for these figures. It's called toy knit or looped fleece. I will put a link in the description as to where I get it. I've got a few different colours because I'm not quite sure what colour will work. The sort of flesh tony one I think will look quite nice. It depends on which shot I'm looking at as to what the colour is. So that one may be a bit too light, but I think it will work. Or I've got this darker fawny one, which I think possibly will be the one I go for. This is the one that I've used to make Luke's Jedi cape, and also the poncho for the Endor version of him. So you can see that's quite a good colour. We will also need to be adding some detail at the end, because the original poncho has lines around the edge of it, but I have an idea of how we can do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just get cutting. I'm going to take a piece of this fabric and I'm going to cut it and see what works. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but I'll just sort of have a play, and as I go and as I cut things, it might give me more ideas of what's going to work. But that's the first stage really, is just cut a bit of fabric, have a go, see what happens. So let's do that. Okay, so here is my prototype. As you see, as I go along, I just sort of cut bits off and make little modifications. I'm actually quite happy with how this is looking already. I basically cut a sort of rectangle of this fabric. That doesn't look right if you put it on the figure. It just doesn't look the right shape. So I've ended up sort of making it into more of like a TIE fighter wing, I guess is what you can call it. So it's sort of angled in. You can see if I flatten that out, it looks a little bit like a TIE fighter wing. I've then drawn lines on the outside of it using fabric markers, because the original has this sort of brown outline. It also got this brown line across the top, and then I folded it just a little bit. So I sort of folded these pieces in just to make a little sort of wedge shape there. I think that looks quite nice. And then I've put a stitch at the top of each of those to hold them in place. This sort of fabric you can't really iron a crease into. If you do, you end up damaging the fabric. So it's easier just to put a little stitch in the top. And you can see that is what I've ended up with. I think that's looking not too bad. So let's put it on the figure and see what it looks like. Does this look like the Luke poncho that you see in the movie? Do you know what? That's not too bad at all. That really doesn't hang too badly. If I'd made it just a square, it would stick out too far because of the way this sort of fabric works. You need weight to pull it down, and this fabric is so light and these figures are so small, it's not going to ever have enough weight to pull it down. So I think that's not looking bad at all. Let's move his arm up, see what he looks like with the lightsaber out. Oh yeah, that's really very nice. I'm very happy with that. Yeah, that's I think pretty much perfect. So what I've got to do now is go and make a pattern so that everyone can copy this. So I'm going to take this one that I've made, I'll make some measurements of it, I'll take those into Photoshop and I will make a pattern. Then we can make a final one based on that pattern, and I'll show you the process right from start to finish. So let's go and make the pattern now. After only a few minutes work, I managed to create this pattern which will do the job for making the final version of the poncho. So I need to cut this out. I'm going to pin it onto the fabric that I'm going to be using, which is this toy knit stuff. Again, as I said, link in the description as to where I get this. I've chosen this lighter version than the one I made the prototype out of. I'm not quite sure which one I prefer, so I just thought I'd have a go at making it with this lighter stuff and seeing how it looks. So let's get this cut out. I'm going to pin it on here and we'll cut out the fabric, and then we can add the lines around the edge of it and do the little bit of sewing that's needed. To add the dark lines around the edge of this poncho, I'm using some fabric markers that I picked up at a local shop. These didn't cost a huge amount of money, and you get a whole range of colours. So I've just taken the brown one out of the packet, and that's what I'll be using. They seem to work quite well. You sort of draw them on, let them dry, and then they're supposedly permanent. They don't seem to cause any issues, so I'm going to be using those to add the lines on the outsides. I've just got a piece of wood here which I'm going to be using to make sure that the line is nice and straight, and I'm going to be putting that over the area I don't want to colour, and then I'll draw the colour on the bit that's still visible. So if I just show you on one line here, I can just draw that on. You can go over it a few times as well just to make sure it's all nicely covered. Like that. And there you go, you can see we've got a nice line now on the edge of the poncho. So I'm going to do all the other edges, and then we need to do a line across the middle like I showed on the original sort of prototype that I worked on. So let's get all of these drawn on, and we can do a little bit of sewing and get the final shape. Right, that's not looking too bad at all. I quite like this light colour. I think it's going to look very nice when it's on the figure. But we do need to do a couple of little stitches to make it hang properly. At the moment, if I put this on, it's going to look really odd because you've basically got sort of big shoulders sticking out. So I'm just going to add a couple of little folds here just to put that corner in, just like that. So you can see I've just folded a part of it in, and then I've got to put a quick stitch just at the top of it to stop it unfolding. This fabric, as I say, you can't really iron it, it's not going to work like that. So just put a quick stitch at the top there to hold that in place, and I'll do the same on the other side, and that will be the finished poncho. And there we go, we now have one finished poncho. So let's put that onto the Luke figure, see what it looks like. Oh yeah, that's not looking too bad. I actually really do like this light colour. I think that's sort of works a lot better. The darker one, you know, it does suit, but I think this lighter one just looks a whole lot nicer. So let's pose him up, put his lightsaber out. Yeah, that's really not looking too bad at all. Very happy with that. So there we go, that is it for this video. I've now managed to make two different versions of a poncho for Luke as you see him on Tatooine, and I think the end results are really very good. It's a fairly simple thing to make, you just need the right sort of fabric. Again, the link to that is in the description, and then the pattern you'll be able to get from toy-polloi.com. So if you want to make your own, go there, grab the pattern, get the fabric. You need a little bit of fabric paint pens to add the detailing around the edge, a little bit of sewing, and you can have your very own Luke poncho. I think this is a really nice addition to this figure, and certainly something that Kenner could have done back in the day. It would have been an easy thing to add and a good way of sort of updating an early release figure to make it that little bit more interesting. If you've enjoyed this video, then check out some of my other cape videos. As you can see, I've done quite a few over the years. I've done lots of custom capes, and I've done pretty much all the capes for all the original figures as well. So if you've got missing capes, go and check those out. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.